Welcome to episode 413 of Salcedo Paranormal, and tonight I am sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions, or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord or you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds or on the Troubled Minds radio network. KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear the show, 2 episodes of the show, replays every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank Michael Strange, excuse me, host of Troubled Minds Radio, and Liam Martin, Rohan of the Exile Minds podcast, for producing the show and putting it up on the station, and adding the music that you all hear when you listen there at the beginning and the end of every episode. If you'd like to support the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always rate and review the show on your podcast platform of choice. You can also share the show. Also, if you are into paranormal fiction and nonfiction books, you can find some of those written by me over on Amazon. And if you'd like to make direct donations to the podcast, there are a few different ways to do that. PayPal, Venmo, and Patreon. And all of those links can be found in every episode description of the show, along with the Discord and the podcast page. I think I need to update the podcast page itself, but all the links are in every description, so they're always there. And I think that takes care of everything. I'll get to the stories here, and we'll get going. So, let's see here. Let me get to the first story. And, okay. This one says, "This just happened, and I can't explain it." And I apologize for the sounds of my cat, Logan, playing around while I'm doing this. But anyway, it says, "While watching TV, my fiance and I started seeing shadows appearing on the screen. At first, it was faint enough so that I thought the backlighting was malfunctioning. But then it changed shape until it was the silhouette of a person. I was able to pause the show we were watching just after it changed to a black, empty screen. From there, we could see the image of this figure, which appeared to be sitting on the couch in a mirror image of the real room. The figure was only visible from the waist up, as they would be given their position in the other room. They were also wearing a fedora. Behind them, I could see the window that sat behind me. In the image, the window curtain was pulled to one side, while behind me, the curtain was closed. I tried exiting out of the show we were watching, using the streaming platform's controls, but nothing happened. Next, I turned off the TV, and then turned it on again. And while the image of the shadow figure and the slightly different version of our room had faded, the streaming platform kept flickering on and off, so that the TV kept flashing its no input message. I restarted the streaming device, and everything worked as it should have from then on. My fiance saw everything I did, I also saw a similar shadow figure once as a child, but that was many years ago, and in a different house. My fiance has never seen anything like this. I don't know how to explain the image or the way the TV and streaming devices had to be restarted to get them to work. I'd appreciate any thoughts as to what just happened. And that's the end of the story. The thing that really caught my attention with that one, it does sound like a shadow figure of a kind. But the other thing that caught my attention in that story is the curtain on the window was closed for the writer and their fiancée, but then in the image on the screen, which appeared to be a reflection of the room, the curtain was pushed off to one side so that the window could be seen. I don't know how to explain that, except it was an image of, I don't know if it was a slightly different world, or if there was some force manipulating the TV just to create that image to where it wasn't an entirely separate world. It was just meant to sort of give that impression. I don't know. But that was really amazing to me, that the details of the room were not the same exactly. I wonder, it probably wouldn't have shown if there had been lights on, but I would wonder if there would have been any other different details, or if you would have even seen more of this figure sitting on this couch in that image. Maybe it wouldn't have been a shadow figure. Just so many possibilities there that I wonder about. And time and again, you see in these shows stories of how reflective surfaces allow for the creation and or viewing of different things that you don't see otherwise if you're looking just in that general direction. And I don't know how that works except for something to do with light. As far as the TV and the streaming device go, the fact that they had to be restarted to get them to work, that part isn't so odd, but I wonder if whoever or whatever was causing the event somehow was able to alter or control the devices, or at least the output of the devices somehow. I really don't know how much of that was direct manipulation of the hardware and versus a reflection allowing for the writer and their fiance to see into this possibly slightly other or different world. This other world where that one curtain was pushed back to one side. Just an amazing story. I'm glad that nothing else really happened there. But it sort of has me just my mind going in all kinds of directions with this one. So as usual, I don't know, but in this case, this seems like there's a few different ways you could look at this, and but the one that is most interesting to me overall is this idea of it being a image of a different version of reality, and that being sort of indicated by the different position of the curtain on the window. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what happened. That's just where my mind likes to go. I guess as being a sci-fi writer. I don't know. Someone that has written sci-fi before. I don't really write so much now, um, but yeah, that's an amazing story there. And I'd be curious if I ever find another story like that. That's going to be amazing. I don't think I've heard of anything quite like that. I've heard of people seeing figures in reflections, shadow figures, other more detailed figures on TV screens and on windows and mirrors. But usually in those cases, the room that you can see in the reflection is still the same otherwise. Usually. I have heard of cases where when people would look into a mirror, they'd see a different place here and there. And so I don't know for sure what that is. If you'll excuse me 1 second here. I think Logan is getting into the kitchen. Okay. Don't know what is getting into her today, but anyway. So yeah, amazing story there. And so I guess I'll just keep going since I can't think of anything else to try to explain that one. So let's see here. All right, getting to the next story. All right, lost my spot. Okay, here we go. This one says, I recently had a friend come to stay with me for a little while. The other day, he asked me if I had noticed anyone moving through my yard the night before. I told him that I hadn't, but it wasn't uncommon for various animals, such as raccoons, deer, rabbits, cats, and possums, to roam the property at that time. He said that he was pretty sure that what he had seen was shaped like a person standing beneath a large magnolia tree in the yard, except they appeared to be made of shadow. This made me remember something odd I had found in my yard when I had first moved into the house about 10 years earlier. It was a box containing what was obviously someone's ashes, but there was no identification on the box that I could use to contact anyone who might be connected to them. Unsure of what else to do, I buried the box in the ground near the magnolia tree, out of respect for the person, whether their spirit was still there or not. So now I wonder, did my friend see the spirit of the person I had attempted to lay to rest years earlier? And that's where the story ends. I can't imagine being in that position. I don't even know if there's, I don't know if there's things that you're supposed to do that maybe they weren't aware of, just as I'm not aware of. Sort of any kind of rules or common practices in that situation. But regarding what happened after, basically, obviously what's done is done. It could have been, I mean, I've heard stories in paranormal shows about people who, and this isn't something that, I don't think this happens in every case, but I've heard of some cases here and there where people who kept their loved ones' ashes in or around their home, they would have activity there. Although usually I seem to be remembering that usually these events, these paranormal events, would take place not long after the person had passed. Maybe there might be some outliers there that I'm not remembering. It's pretty hard when you've listened to shows on this topic for years. There's just so many. But so it's possible. But I don't know. Could have just been some other figure passing through. I do believe that happens. I think I've had that happen in my own apartment where I had what sounded like an older couple just talking, and almost as if they were walking through what to them seemed like open space. But it was my apartment, and I've told the story before, but this always comes to mind when I think of sort of any kind of other, basically anyone passing through an area where they're not in the same state or dimension or whatever you want to phase, whatever you want to call it, where they're just moving through an area. And I think in some cases they're aware. They may be aware of who else is around them. In other cases, maybe not. And I think that in my case, I don't think that the people that were passing through were aware. And but I heard this older couple talking, and it started in the front of the apartment. This is not long after I moved in here, about 16, 17 years ago now. And just a pleasant conversation, and the sound moved through the apartment from the front to the back and out through the wall and away, and so, and actually toward a nursing home that is not too far from here. So I don't know what was going on for sure, but it just seemed like they were passing through. So it's hard to say whether or not, especially if there was no other activity on that site over the years. To me, when it's just sort of like what they call like a one-off or a one-time experience, I wonder if that's just someone passing through. So, of course, I don't know, but that's the first thing that comes to mind in that situation. So yeah, I don't know beyond that for sure if that was a person that the writer tried to honor, or if it was someone else. I don't know, but neat story there. Glad that nothing else happened, and it wasn't really, other than being probably surprising to the writer's friend, nothing else really happened. So I have one more story here to get through today. And let's see here. I scrolled past it. Okay. This one says, I was recently part of a community theater show over the course of one winter that ended in March. The place where the play was rehearsed had a long history, starting out as a nursing home before changing into an office space, with a large part of the building later being converted into a rehearsal area. Because of how everything was scheduled, I was never alone in the building. Those of us who were on the cast of the play would always use the side door to come and go as well. But on the last night of my time with this theater, there was a cast party at the rehearsal space, and we ended up leaving through the front doors. As we neared the doors, someone realized we had left the lights on and went back to turn them off, telling us not to leave them behind. Right after he finished calling back to us, I heard a woman's voice that I didn't recognize, asking, "Why are you going?" The voice wasn't yelling, but it was clearly a voice, and not one that I recognized. The other woman in our group turned to me, her face pale, and asked, "Did you hear that?" I confirmed that I did. We were both freaked out. But neither of the guys we were with, including the one that had run back to turn off the lights, heard the voice. It was so creepy that I refused to even look at the building as we drove away. I was sure that I would have seen something strange at one of the windows. Later on, we shared our experience on the community theater group's social media page. Other members of the group who had been there longer wrote back, basically saying, "Oh yes, that's just E." And I'm using an initial there. It says, apparently, according to them, she had been one of the last patients to stay in the nursing home before it was closed. And she has been seen and or sensed ever since. This amazed me, as I had never heard about this before in all my time during these months working with this group. And that's where the story ends. So, I, on the one hand, it could be a residual thing, I guess, in a way, maybe. But the fact that it happened on the last night of this play or this production, and it was as they were leaving, and the voice was heard saying, "Where are you going? Why are you going?" That to me, at least suggests the possibility of intelligence there, of awareness. And but I wonder how many times that whether it was a person either living and somehow able to sense forward into time, or whether it was a spirit, either way, I would think eventually they would maybe figure out what was going on. Maybe not if they weren't there all the time, or if they were sort of distracted with their situation. I guess there could be a lot of factors there, but that's an amazing experience that the writer and one of their friends had. And again, you have this so often where in a group of people, not all of them have the experience or hear the sound or see whatever it is that the others see. And so I wonder if that was a sort of that person was really focused on the writer and their one friend, or if it was just, I don't know how that would work. But it's not uncommon for multiple people to have different experiences and or have sometimes it's more of a case where some people in the group have a paranormal experience and the rest have no idea that it just happened. So, and I'd be curious, obviously the story doesn't say where this happened, but I'd be curious about any other encounters that you might be able to hear about if you were to be able to talk to all the people that work there. But that's all I have time for today. Thank you all for listening. And I'll be back to cover paranormal news on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.